We are live. Me and Chris Miller tonight talking about some crappie fishing in North Carolina or crappie fishing wherever we get on the subject about. And let me pull up my comments here. Let's see if Facebook is like 15 seconds behind, so they'll be actually it'll be a little bit delayed. But that's fine. Let me click over to YouTube real quick and see if that's working. But hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to Carolina Catching Cast tonight. It's gonna be me and Chris Miller talking about crappie fishing and pretty much anything else that we want to talk about. So Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself and let the people know where you're from, kind of what you do for a living, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Chris Miller, born and raised in a little town called Southmont, which is at High Rock Lake. Lived here my whole life. Got three awesome kids. Been married 24 and a half years to my beautiful wife, Cassie. She's an unbelievable person. She's been around animals her whole life. She barrel raced growing up, so she kind of had the hands of gold, is what people say. She could really touch an animal and just keep it calm, keep it relaxed, and that's kind of how she really got into the show beagle world. And she's real good at doing that. But kids love to fish. She fishes. We live life on the lake. I mean, you just can't beat it. It's fun. It's awesome. Crappie fish my whole life. Dad used to carp fish. Dad carp fish for years, and I remember we was in a little Mazda B2000. I think that's what it was, a B2000. He'd have 5-gallon buckets full of trout chow and butternut flavoring and Texas Pete and rice and minute Uncle Ben's. He'd have all that stuff back there just fermenting. And I remember all the rods and reels, the ugly sticks, and he had Daiwa Millionaire 2s, I want to say. And I remember 17-pound test line everywhere. That was his favorite. I think he liked it for the cast, and he liked it for the durability and to pull those big carp in. But I remember catching carp with Dad, and me and my brother would grab the net and grab the carp, and we both hollered around, and the people around would say, "There goes them Miller boys with another big carp." So really, while we were waiting on the carp fishing, we would take Dad's old line and we would throw it out there and catch some crappie, some brim. And I remember catching my first bass, and I'll never forget it. Nassfoot hooked me bass fishing in a carp pond, and been bass fishing ever since. Bass fished up till I was probably, I don't know, 5 years ago. Maybe I was 40. And then I actually crappie fished in between. I did a lot of crappie fishing when the bass wasn't biting. And that's something I taught myself. If one fish wasn't biting, I'd go after another species of fish. So it would be fly fishing for brim. It would be carp fishing, throwing bread dough balls out there in High Rock and trying to catch some fish. Caught a goldfish one time. I'll never forget it. Done some gar fishing. Love the gar fish. Not many people gar fish. A lot of people bow fish, but I like the gar fish too. I've caught several gar. And then crappie fish, cork and a jig, everywhere. High Rock, everywhere. So done a lot of crappie fishing, and then like I said, I'm sure y'all saw the video. A couple guys got me and my old partner Kevin Blevins into tournament fishing, and we never looked back. So
I got you. Yeah, it's a little bit of I've done a little bass fishing. A couple tournaments. A guy I got in, Nick Bryant, he was fishing over at Jordan Lake, Harris Way, and I wasn't any good at it. I was basically his net man. But yeah. it's definitely fun. It's a different addiction, kind of, that bass to the crappie. But it's the crappie. I seem to understand them a little bit better than I did bass for some reason.
I think, to me, when we started single pole fishing, I spider rigged. I pulled crankbaits. I had some help from a buddy who lives right behind me. Some of your old timers might know him. He fished the Gold Hill, but his name's Neil Mahaffey. And he's just an unbelievable wealth of knowledge. And I used to listen to him and talk to him for years. He always told me about the Gold Hills. taught me a little bit about spider rigging. So I'd go out and I'd try this stuff. And he said, "You need to try this. You need to try that." And I'll never forget when I was spider rigging the old red flash. I had a ProCraft Super Pro 200 with a 200 Mercury on it,
Mm,
94 model, I believe. So it was it was a pretty boat, but it was old. And
right.
I put rod holders all over it, and I was spider rigging, and I had them old B&Ms, the 14 footers, as far out on the sides as I could put them. Half-ounce weight in a river rig with a Bandit 200 hot pink, and I would burn high rock up, man. Every once in a while, it's a nice big crappie, but I'd catch a catfish and a bass, and a catfish and a bass, and used to love spider rigging. So I miss those days. But it seems like when we switched over to the single pole fishing, it's like the bass came back. It's like I'm still getting the thrill of setting the hook on a fish
Right, right.
with just one rod.
Uh-huh.
And you know, you're not spider rigging. So, because it takes you 15, 10, 5 minutes to put all those rods up. But when
Yeah.
you're single pole fishing, boom, 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 it's so much quicker and faster. So it feels like I'm bass fishing. I think that's why
Yeah.
it sets so well.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand that. I did the interview with Ed Duke this past weekend, and I'm gonna release that video probably next week. And that's one of the things we touched on is the difference of back in the day. You know, you can back in the day you might could only hit 3 or 4, maybe 5 spots a day. You know, because every time you put out it's 5 minutes. Every time you pick your rods back up, it's 5 minutes and longer if you're fishing by yourself. And you know, if all you got to do now is lay a rod down, pull your trolling motor up, and go. I mean, you're packed up in 15 seconds, headed down the lake. The time savings is crazy compared to now back then.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that really sets in on the tournament side is yeah, you're bouncing around more when you're single pole fishing. And if you're
Right,
not spending too much time, you might be, I think, a little bit more successful trying to hit different spots, trying to hit different points, trying to hit some of these places where I've caught big bass before, and I
right,
show up looking for crappie, and there's a big crappie there. Because I think these crappie, when they get a little older, they start acting like a game fish. They start acting like a bass.
right.
And when your bass, how should I say it?
Mindset.
Mindset, yeah, good. You get the mindset starts to come out. Then all of a sudden, oh, I got this rock pile over here. Got this stump bed over here. I got this over here. That starts bouncing out, and you go test it, and you go look at it like, ooh, wait a minute, what is that?
Yeah.
Throw that jig down there on it, and boom, there's a 2.5 white. You know.
Yeah, I
So
understand that. Let's see. We got our first question of the night. Kenneth said, "Hey, we got people on Facebook and YouTube commenting. I need to check my other thing right
I'm
now,
gonna.
y'all. I'm streaming to. You don't see the comments on your
I
side?
don't see nothing. I don't know where I need to go. Oh, I got it. Here we
All
go.
right,
Okay.
they're starting to roll in now. But I can see comments on the Facebook side and YouTube side. But what I'm doing right now, I'm streaming to YouTube, the podcast page, and my personal page. So there's a lot going on at once. So if I miss your comment, just try to put an extra comment in there, and I might catch it on the second go round. But we got our first question of the night, and from YouTube. DLX Skiff said, when scoping fish this time of year, do you guys focus on creek channel bends, structure, or what before they get to the flats and banks?
You want me to answer that one?
Yeah, you can go ahead. I'll follow
Um,
up.
yes. So a lot of times I'm I'll be 2D. I'll use 2D. I use every arsenal I have in my boat. I learned a lot by a lot of the fishing I did in the past, and I do what I call speed 2D searching, and I'll
Right.
just be running that creek channel. And if I start reading on 2D, if I see two pods, if I see, spec, long pods underneath, I back it down, drop scope, don't be afraid, drop scope, see what you're looking at. If it's
Yeah.
not there, if you don't see a fish, I jump back up, put the scope back down, put it back on throttle, and take off. And I'll zigzag down a creek channel, or right before I get to a flat. If there's a channel bend that swings near it,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do the same thing. I'll ride over it, zigzag. You'll see me. A lot of people may think I'm sick or something, but I zigzag. I zigzag, and if I see more concentrated fish on one side of the creek channel than the other, well, guess what? I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna drop the scope. Doesn't take but a second. That
Right.
scope's gonna tell you everything. So
Yeah.
that's a good question. And temperature's key too. You start to notice that water temp rise just a hair this time of year. Just seems like to me, from what I've learned, from what I've seen, those fish rise too. And fish are very sensitive. You know, I would think 1/100th of a degree means a lot to them. Now, to us,
Right.
that may not mean a lot, but they live in the water. So don't be
Right.
afraid to check that water temp. If it starts to get a little warmer on one side of the creek channel than the other, well, guess what? Sun's been bouncing on that side. Check it out. So,
Right. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I believe you called it speed scanning, if I remember right. We didn't go over it in the YouTube video. It's slipped my mind, but is that speed scanning is kind of what he's talking about, y'all using 2D and kind of what'd you say about 8-9 miles an hour, just kind of going back and forth, or you go faster?
actually, I'm going like 30.
Oh, okay,
I'm
okay,
going 30, and my I have an old Helix 12. It's Gen 1. I got the old transducer on the back, but my transducer seems to be reading really good where it's sitting. So if I'm on plane, that thing's reading like if I was sitting still,
I
and
got
that's
you.
the way I've had it set up, and that's how my old flash Procraft would set up, because I used to look for striper, and if I would see them striper marks either under the bait or above the bait, then I would stop. I didn't have scope then, so I'd drop the rods, put the big 4-inch gizzard shad, and just start drifting,
I got
and
you.
and give it about 30 minutes. Not 2 seconds with a scope, but give it about 30 minutes, see if you catch one. So
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, DLX skiff. This time of year, as far as me, I don't focus on structure until pretty much after the spawn. That's when I'll start looking at brush piles and stuff like that. Here in North Carolina, I mean, I'm not saying that they're not ever on structure in the winter, but I've never had any luck of either brush piles, standing timber, nothing like that. I focus nothing. I don't even look for it. I know I got waypoints on mine, and it's like I basically avoid those. And it's all to me just a time of year and conditions type thing. A lot of people out Mississippi type way and stuff like that, they hold on structure year round, but it doesn't
mhm.
seem to be, in my personal opinion, I've never found them on structure. Now, let me take that back. At Harris, there's some full blown standing 30-foot
Mhm.
trees in Harris, and I've found them in the tops of those trees before, but it's only on a rare occasion. It's most time it's just all open water for what I look for.
I think it depends on the lake too. Sometimes, the Yadkin River seems like some of the dirtier lakes. Uh, they seem to uh, school up a little different. They seem to act a little different on those clear lakes,
Hmm.
especially if they're whitefish. The whitefish always tend to stay on structure, especially here at High Rock. I mean, our structure may be a layover in 3-4 foot of water,
Right.
and those whites seem to stick to that a little bit longer. I mean, they're even on it right now. I mean, if you find the
Hmm.
right spot, there'll be a white sitting on a layover or under a layover or beside a layover or in a layover, and it's weird. And it seems like the blacks don't really stick to that; they just stay out in that open water. But I have caught some whites. They not be big, but I have
Right.
caught some decent whites roaming around. So it just depends. Um,
Right.
but yeah, it seems like more lakes out that way have a lot more structure and have a lot more white fish, and they tend to knot up on those big stumps. So
Yeah. Yeah. He said he was from Bugs Island. So, I mean, I think Bugs has got plenty of
mhm,
whites and blacks too.
yeah,
So, I've never
yeah.
fished there, but I'd say it's somewhat similar probably.
I love Bugs Island. It's a giant lake. A lot of big fish in that lake. So
Let's
God,
see
it's hard to
another.
keep up with all these questions. It's
Yeah.
tough.
I wasn't expecting them to roll in like this, but this
Look
is
at this.
a quick one right here, you buddy
Okay.
Coleman. And talk about, I actually did this in a tournament at High Rock. I dropped on a few fish and they weren't active. So we basically just left and came back and checked them that afternoon. They started biting a little bit.
Yeah, and sometimes you may see a fish and you may chase it for, 2-3 minutes. And if I don't get a reaction strike right off the bat, you've probably seen the video. I leave it alone.
Hmm.
I just go on
Yep.
and try to find another fish that wants to bite.
Yep.
Now, do I come back to that fish? I don't know if that fish is still there. I may come back to that spot and look and see if he's still there, but probably 90% of the time I don't. I'd rather find something new.
Right.
But most of the time, I just go try to find another fish that wants to bite. I don't give a fish long at all. So
Yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of comments on the YouTube tips and tricks video talking about how, you make 4 or 5 pitches on him. If he's not interested, just keep on moving. And a lot of people were saying on there, seeing that in real time, they've been wasting a lot of time on fish. Or
mhm.
I actually heard it, I think this week or last week. One guy was saying he was frustrated when he first got live scope because he was just brush pile fishing, 100 fish on a brush pile.
Excuse me.
And he's just sitting there for 2 hours and he might catch 2. Well, he went on a guide trip, to kind of learn something. And he said that guide moved like 20 or 30 times that day. And he'd
Yep.
make 5 casts. If they weren't active, they'd move to another one. And ever
Yep.
since then, that helped that guy tremendously. There's no point in sitting there if they're not paying your bait no attention.
I don't know if you guys remember brush pile fishing back in the day, but a lot of times the boats will set up right over top of a brush pile, or
Mm-hmm.
10 feet from a brush pile, and flip out to it, and they'll throw a buoy on it, or throw a
Right.
buoy
Yep.
beside of it to throw at. And then after those, I mean, there's probably fish there, a ton of fish, especially in the
Mm-hmm.
summertime, but you may only catch 2 or 3, and they just stare at your bait the rest of the day. So
Yep.
I would give it about 5-10 minutes. If I don't have 25 fish in live well within that time frame, I'd move on to the next brush pile, or try to. Right now, if you do have a live scope, I don't like to pull up to a brush pile and get real close. I stay off of it as far as I can,
Right.
but being able to make an accurate cast at the same time. So
Mm-hmm.
that way you don't get that boat slap right on top of that brush pile. They know what that
Right.
means. They shut down. So
Yeah, I don't know if you know Shiloh Chappelle on Facebook, or he's a big tournament guy out in Alabama, and he starts casting at 50, and he
yeah,
likes to keep them in that 40 to 50 range just because of the boat slap and stuff. And I mean, if you're good at casting, that's because a lot of times blackfish they'll follow it all the way up to the trolling motor, and
mhm,
before they ever hit it, so that extra 10, 15 feet, from a I like to get them, like you said, whatever they'll allow me to get away with. If they'll allow me to get closer, I'll,
yeah,
make an easy pitch over to them.
yeah,
But if they're finicky, I'll try to, because y'all, the farther you out and you're looking at your live scope, the farther out it is, the wider that beam is. So, if you're seeing your bait at 20, just say it's in a 3-foot wide span or something like that. It's a 20-degree angle. At 50 feet, it may be a 6-foot wide span.
yeah.
So 6 foot, if in dingy water, that fish is liable to not even see it. You think it's close to the fish, but it's really not.
Steve
Let's see.
Dyer, would you talk about your rod
Yeah,
setup?
I was just about
Okay.
to pull that up.
I don't dead stick a lot. Tyler, you hit that one, man. And then I'll throw my 2 cents at the end on my setup.
All right. Yeah, I like a 16-foot Huckabee rod, decay rod, and it's a stiff rod. You don't have to worry about a net because 99% of the time that fish is going to get under that bait and sit here. When he comes up, sucks it in his mouth, and you set the hook, it's going to be right there in the roof. So you don't have to worry about it pulling the paper mouth. You don't have to worry about the jig pulling out or nothing like that. So you just force them right on up in the boat, and you don't give him a chance to get off. And because if you got his head moving up, the only way he's going to get off is if you allow him to play you. That's why I see some of these rods. They're really, got a lot of fight in them. If I'm coming up with him, I'm coming up until he pulls me back down.
Yeah.
And but no, I got like a 16-foot Huckabee rod, and I actually like a heavier weight. I like about a half-ounce weight, and depending on, I'll use anything from a 32nd all the way up to a quarter, depending on what they'll let me get by with as far as the bait underneath it. But I like to have at least a half-ounce weight, and I'll do a rubber stopper on top, the weight, and then I actually do 2 bobber stoppers on the bottom. Having 2 bobber stoppers on the bottom with that heavy weight, when you set the hook, that's a lot of momentum all at an instant. And that 2 bobber stoppers, it doesn't seem to slip near as much. That's just, I don't know if I picked it up watching a video or what it was, but I like to do 2 on the bottom, the weight, and then 1 rubber bobber stopper on top. And that's what I like to fish with.
What reel were you using, a spinning or a bait caster?
Oh yeah. On my long poles, I use nothing but bait caster. I like because when I'm holding it, I'm basically holding it just like this with my thumb on the spool. So if I'm coming up on the fish, just say I push it to him, and decides to go down 2 feet. All I got to do is click the button, and that's why I like a little heavier weight too. I don't have to feed the line. As soon as I click that button, boom, it's down that 2 feet, and I just hold it until he notices it. And I mean, you can just hold the spool when it's not going to slip if you got to set the hook or something. But when I first started, I used nothing but spinning rod or spinning reels, and it just seemed dead stick. And to me, it got in the way, and I didn't really like it. When you needed that on the fly adjustment to go down, you had to come over here with your other hand, flip the bail back, and then hope it was in the right spot. And I actually use a left-handed reel because when I want everything, I don't have to switch poles because I learned that bass fishing too. Growing up, I always used right-handed reels, and I'm doing this. It may look opposite to y'all. It may look like I'm doing my left hand, but growing up, I always used right-handed reels. Well, when I started bass fishing, you would flip in a bush or something, set the hook. Well, whenever you go to switch hands, that's kind of giving him a half a second to advantage on you to reel on this side. So I started using left-handed reels, so I never had to switch hands because I would lose some fish like that sometimes. And I kind of just always stuck with because even on my cast or spinning reels, to me it's left-handed too. It's considered a right-handed, but I just all left-handed, even though I do everything right-handed, predominantly. But left-handed reel for me, 16-foot pole and a half-ounce weight is the way I go for my dead sticking.
I use a 16-foot Huckabee rod, and I've got some backing line on it, probably like some 12-pound or something, about halfway. Yeah. And then I put about maybe 30 yards of K9 10-pound. Mm-hmm. And then at the tip coming out, I've got probably I think it's about 2 foot or 3 foot fluoro 20-pound. And then I've got a bobby stopper just like you, above the weight and below the weight. And I got a bunch of bullet weights from when I bass fish. So right. I think it's probably a 3/8. So it's up there. It's a little heavy. And then I come off about maybe 6 inches, and I try to use the smallest jig I can most of the time if you're dead sticking. But not all the time. But if I'm having a dead stick, the fish ain't biting. And I don't want to have to dead stick a lot, but I can if I need to. I'd rather pitch out to my fish. I feel like I can catch them faster. But when they are up high and you don't want to scare them, you want to stalk them. It seems right. Like the small jig with that weight does really well for me. And I'll try that 2 bobber stoppers on the bottom. So because I have set the hook on fish and I missed it, and I want to go right back to them real fast. My weight is down by the jig.
Yep.
And that's a no-no. That you probably won't catch that fish, and 9 times out of 10 you probably miss him. But yeah, I'll try to put that bobber stopper, 2 of them right above or right below the weight. But I use a double uni knot, and I've used it for years. I haven't had one slip yet. So heavy, if it's really windy, I'd probably go with a 1/2 ounce. But that way you can push that to him pretty quick. Or if you can ease up to him and just lightly get it down to him, don't shoot it down to him fast, but lightly get it to him until he notices it. I don't like to put it right in their face. I like for it to come in naturally. You've probably seen that a lot when I was fishing. I like for a bait to come into a fish naturally. It just seems like you get a better strike.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed too. This wasn't in the video, but like I was trying in the video, Chris was doing he was mainly pitching the whole time. I think you did the whole video if I remember right. Mm-hmm. And I've never, if I'm either casting or dead sticking. So I tried that pitching thing on 3 or 4 fish, and I was just like, it's just not my deal. So I said, Chris, hand me that long pole. The first fish I dropped on, I mean, it was just like, it's all what you used to. Which that's what Kevin Blevins just said here. He said, a lot of times you think the jig's close enough when you're pitching to him, but they really don't see it. You'll see that shimmer, or a lot of people, where he's like shaking, getting excited. When you see that shimmer, get ready because he noticed it. He's coming.
Yeah, Kevin's a hell of a dead sticker. He's done it way longer than I have, and he's really put in the expertise on that thing, and I've learned a lot from him. Watching him dead stick a lot, so he's if you see anything, if you see him out there dead sticking, you probably better get your 16 footer out too. That's probably the only way they're biting.
Yeah. Let's see. Coleman, yeah, I could see the YouTube comments coming through YouTube and Facebook.
Josh Ferrier says, "What is typically the water temp when crappie start to change to a spawning pattern?" Uh, Crappie is a little, I think, is about maybe 5 degrees earlier than bass. I would say like I'd start seeing fish feed real heavy between 50 55, and then when it starts getting past 55, I think they're on the move. They're on the move, moving back, and they're on the move. They may be halfway back, but they may move straight to the piers and start
Mm-hmm.
spawning. I think sometimes fish spawn not as shallow as you think. They're not in that 2 foot, 1 foot water. They may be the bigger fish. May be. I have caught some really big fat girls on some piers in like 4 to 5 foot of water, about halfway back to 3/4 of the way back in the creeks.
Right.
So it just depends. It depends on they may be staged out there in the center of that creek, and then it have a warm night like 50 degrees, and then all of a sudden, I mean, y'all seen how fast fish move,
Yeah.
really fast. They'll shoot right over to the bank, start doing their thing.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of some warm nights, I think this upcoming week, I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's supposed to be in the 70s.
mm-hmm.
So you're probably the fish you're fishing for this week may be gone next week.
Yep, yep. I've had a lot of guys call me this week while I was out of town. Chris, I'm not seeing no fish here. I'm not seeing no fish here. I said, go back to the back. And one of my things that I want to tell y'all about my tournament um, practice style is I'll force myself to start in the back of a pocket or back of a creek and then work my way out. Because
Right.
guess what? If you only went halfway and you come back out and somebody caught them in the back, and you should have went back there and checked it. You should have went
Yeah.
because I'll never and I've heard Newly Montgomery say it a lot. Did you go all the way to the back? Did you go all the way to the back? Are they in the back? Are they in the back? And that's just a what crappie like to do. They like to go to the back. So go to the back and check it. That way, at least you got some confidence saying, I checked the
Right.
back. They're not
Yeah.
there. So
To me, that's the easiest way to eliminate water.
mm,
Start shallow and then push out. Because I've caught myself doing that, starting at the mouth, and then it seems like I never get to the back if I start
yeah,
that way. But basically, because if you're going to the back, you have to come back out, to
yeah,
pass all that water, and it's just I think that's a mindset thing too.
it is.
As far as, but I'd like to start shallow. Not shallow is relative to the time of year on certain lakes, but yeah, it's definitely works that way. Justin said not all bobber stoppers are created equal either.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely get a quality bobber stopper. Don't buy something cheap on Amazon. Go buy you a pack of 10 for $3 or $4. I mean, they're not expensive. And actually, I put a YouTube up if y'all want to see how to reuse those bobber stoppers. I mean, bobber stoppers could be reused 3 or 4 times.
hmm
And it's not something a one time deal where you have to throw it away either. So you can make one or three per setup, three per line, go a long ways.
I got a shout out to my buddy Rusty Dell here. He's a good friend of mine. He's a customer. He lives out toward Wilson, and he loves the crappie fish. I'm trying to. He bass fishes a lot, but he's starting to learn how to crappie fish, and he got the feel of what those tail hooks felt like. So you
Yeah,
got to get some power poles and some tail hooks on that Phoenix, baby. You got to
yeah.
call Roy at Wacky Wiggers. He'll hook you up.
Let's we'll get back to the questions in just a second, y'all. But I want to see because you get a pretty good feel on High Rock, seeing it day in and day out. What makes High Rock so special? Is it just being the first river or lake on the river, got all the nutrients coming down, or what?
I'll tell you my hypotenuse on that, and it's several. Yes, it's the first lake. Yes, it's the first water that comes out of the mountain. So I think High Rock stays a few degrees cooler than the rest of the lakes.
Right. Never thought
And
about that.
It does, and now it may warm up faster in the back of these pockets that don't get all that water flow, but
Right.
we get a lot of runoff from a lot of farms up the creek, up the Yakin. We get a lot of bait that feed on a lot of this runoff.
Hmm.
I think that's why this lake has such a huge bait concentrated profile for this
Right.
lake, and I also think that this is a huge shallow lake. It's well, it's not huge, but it's big. It's the second largest lake in the state, and people
Right.
don't realize that. When they hear that, they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh no, it ain't." Well, yeah, it is. Go to go to Potts and then turn around, go all the way to the back of Abbott's under the
Yeah.
bridge at 47. It's going to take you a while, but
Yeah.
it feels small because we've lived here and we fished here all this time. But it's a very big lake. There's a lot of bait. It's a shallow lake, a lot of piers, a lot of structure, a lot of stumps. It stays dirtier, so I think these fish learn how to feed and feed differently. But it's a great lake. It's got a lot of different species in it too, so
Hmm.
that helps. And it's got a lot of structure. Like I said, a lot of piers. A lot of, and I think when the Wildlife Commission decided to take that limit off and the size, the creel, I think it's made it better, in my opinion. Now, I will say that down the road, we need to be throwing these 2 pounders back. We don't need to be keeping them all. I think there needs to be some kind of slot limit where, yes, you can keep anything up to 10 inches or 12 inches, but after that, throw the big ones back. I think that will
Right.
help us with our kids and our later later times fishing. But
Right.
it's a great lake. It's got a lot of bait in it, and it's a big lake. It's an old lake. This lake was built in 27 or 28, I think. So it's been around a long time. Um,
Right.
I'm hoping one day they'll rebuild that dam because I don't know how much longer it's going to last. It's going to be 100 years old here soon.
Right.
So it's just an old lake, a lot of bait, big lake, and it seems like the bait here is just it's just they're big, so the fish eat big and they grow bigger. So
I got you. Yeah, I was actually talking to John Poole this week, and he was saying how you know I don't know. I just started fishing up there 2 years ago, and so I don't know the history as far as years back when, but as far as I know, every all the Yakin chain has, or from High Rock to Tillery, it's no limits. And
mhm.
him and I believe it was Hawkins were saying it's helped the lakes, but some of the lakes like Tillery they need to go back and survey the fish and
Yeah,
kind of start putting a limit on a couple of them because it's getting imbalanced a little bit as far as fish numbers and things like that.
I agree. Need to do something like either what Jordan or some of these lakes do. Have a slot limit or have something where yes, 20 per man. As long as they're up to you know 12 inches, 14 inches. A pound three, a pound five is a great fish.
Right,
But I think once we start getting to those pound eights and pound nines and twos and 220s, we need to toss them back. They're too big
right,
to clean anyway. So, but yeah, it probably needs to be reevaluated so we don't hurt the population of the big fish later on. So I
right.
agree with you.
Rodney, I just saw your comment here. When you start getting it, it's going to get even worse as the water starts to warm up. To me, it seems like the warmer it gets, the more they follow. But I don't know if you've got brakes on your boat, but that's one of the benefits of having brakes too. Whenever once you notice him, if he starts following your bait at 15, 20 feet when you pitched on him, all you got to do is step on your brakes, and then you're steadily backing up. He's not going to meet the boat because the boat's also backing away from him, and you don't have to worry about the agony of the feet whenever he comes right up to the trolling motor and turns around because it's just keeping that distance.
Exactly.
Let's see.
Yep.
Yeah, Justin said High Rock's got its mind of its own. You can find a fish 2 pounder, 2.5, 3 foot of water any time of the year.
It is. Well, it's because it's a shallow lake. It's it's
Yeah,
it's. I think the average of this lake, the average depth. If I could be wrong, y'all, but I thought it was 12 feet, which is shallow. I mean, you go to Norman, you go to Baden. I mean, there's some places where you go in the mouth of a pocket and it's 50 foot deep.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. And I remember driving the other week. I think I practiced last Sunday, I believe. That's the last day I practiced. But I was going across out of the golf course area and heading down over to the Clearwater side over to Circle Drive, and my depth finder was hitting 130, 140 foot deep.
Whew.
So it's a super deep lake.
Yeah, Josh said here, Tillery has studies done every year. So as long
That's
as
good.
somebody knows that they're maintaining it, they'll keep an
That's
eye on it.
good.
Keeps people from talking. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. That's good. And Kevin also said here, temperature means a lot, but
Yeah.
also
Let me pull
daylight
that up.
hours means a lot. Yeah, I highly agree with that. Temperature does change some things, but when it starts getting longer days, I think that goes a long way. Those fish sense it; they know. They have a
Right.
biological clock too, and they know when it's time to get it on. So,
Yep. And it's already. I know. I think it was like starting to break day at 6:30 this morning. And a couple of weeks
mhm,
ago, it was 7:15, and now it's about 6:30 before it starts getting dark. So they should be on with the warmer temperature next week. The fish you're catching this week probably won't be there next week. They'll be a little
mhm,
bit shallower.
yep,
Let's see what Peter says. Peter's on the water all the time, catching all kind of stuff.
you dang right. That's a fishaholic right there.
Talking to some of the top tier wildlife guys, they claim to implement a limit on Yakin lakes in 2026.
Well, I think that's smart. That'd be good. Bring it back to the 20-25 per man. I think that's a,
Yeah,
that's a great thing. So,
yeah. Let's see. Let's
any,
see. Yeah, we already went over all that. Something me and you talked about earlier, something that you and Kevin did, came up from the bass side. I talked
mm,
to you before we came on, but I actually talked to one of the cat directors for the bass trails that does the yak and chain earlier today, and he kind of told me about their schedule. We just talked about kind of some of those bass guys, if they got a free weekend or something, just come over and hone those live scope skills, because I've watched a lot of bass professionals say when they first got their live scope, the first thing they did is went crappie fishing, because
mhm,
it's an open water fish. Your bass can tend to do their own thing, relating shallower to where I mean, they're catching bass off beds now in perspective now, so everybody's pretty much got it dialed in. But a couple of years ago, that's what everyone seemed to do. And I don't know if some of y'all follow Brandon Lester. He's got a really good YouTube channel, and that's like all he does in the winter.
mhm,
He's go
mhm,
crappie fishing, and his live scope skills the last couple of years have definitely paid out. I think 2 years ago he got Angler of the Year, and I know some of that's probably from him just honing his skills through the winter. So if y'all know any bass guys that have some free time or looking just to straight up transfer over, come over to the crappie world,
yep.
that bass stuff, it's hard to compete in. They die hards for sure.
Yeah, I got some bass guys I've been talking to that are highly interested in coming over to fish, and even if you're just practicing, just try it. Give us a call, text, email, holler at us on Facebook. We'll point you in the right direction. So
Yeah.
and you may turn, never know. There's something about catching 30, 40, 50, 60 fish a day. It's a little different than throwing your arm off all day long catching 3, 4 bass. So
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about that a little bit as far as not necessarily tournament scene. It could be bass coming to crappie, or someone trying to come into the tournament scene. If they're on the edge of their seat, of just trying it, what would you say to those people?
as far as like what they should do or what?
Well, not necessarily that, but like kind of just the perspective of a
Oh,
lot of them just straight up are like, well, I can't compete with those guys. Well,
hmm,
if that's your mindset, I mean, you probably can't. But I would just tell you straight up, you're gonna get your butt whooped. The first couple of years. That's another thing me and Ed talked about this past weekend. You come try it for 2 years. If you don't do good, you can just fun fish. But he said, within the first 2 years of tournament fishing, if you've got a shot of progressing your game enough to kind of and hang with the not necessarily big dogs, but if you can get a top 10 in any of these tournaments, on a weekend, I mean, I consider that's a pretty good finish.
yeah. Um, give it a whirl. I seen. You know what? It's funny you said that. Probably here in the last year, I've seen more boats that I'm unfamiliar with. Guys have spent the money I mean,
Yeah.
they have got bigger screens than me. I mean, they got giant screens. They built their own custom brake systems. They got
Yeah.
their own custom mounts for their head units.
Right.
They are really getting into it, and I'm hoping that we're about to see a flux of a lot of crappie fishermen starting to come over and fish some of these tournaments, and that's what it takes. It takes you trying some things. It takes you testing your skills. It takes you buying a set of scales and just weighing your best
Yeah.
seven fish throughout the day and just see where you at. Now, remember, every day is different. Uh, you need to try to come to a tournament and just see how you do. Just see
Yeah.
how you stack up against us or some of the other guys. And being there though will make you make different decisions on the water that day versus if you were just fun fishing. So
Right.
you got to learn to make those tournament decisions in a tournament, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when you start getting better. So come on out, come out to Yakin River Crappie Trail. Go. What's his face out there, Rod King? The big eye. That's a great
Mm-hmm.
trail. Hit it, see what it's all about. Get out here and try some of these trails, and you'll figure out where you stand. And being there, listening at the end, at the weigh-ins, and talking to guys, get out and go around talk. If you see me at the weigh-in, come over and talk to me.
Right.
Ask me any questions you want. I'll show you anything in my boat. I love helping people. Everybody knows that. I think it's a great thing. It feels like I get to give back.
Right.
It's a great thing. So yeah, don't be afraid to just give it a whirl. Go try.
Yeah, I mean I don't know how it is on the bass side. I know those guys are still real secretive. At least when I was fishing over there. But I mean, after the
Yeah,
tournament, you could unless someone found out something sneaky during the tournament that they don't kind of want to
yeah,
release yet.
yeah,
I mean, it's pretty much just free game. Come over and ask me what I was doing, where I fished at. If whatever. I mean, I've learned a lot just standing around 30,
hmm
45 minutes after a tournament.
yeah,
And yeah, going back to that pre fishing, it doesn't matter if I'm fun fishing or not. I always weigh my first seven because
hmm
if you get into, because I fish by myself 90% of the time, it's muscle memory putting the fish on, weighing them, cooling. The faster you
hmm
can get done at, fun fishing, it's just repetition. And you won't have to think about it during the
yeah,
tournament. And, then you're kind of adjusting your eyes to what you're seeing on the screen. Okay, well, if you just caught 10 pound fish and then you see something bigger than that pound fish looked on the screen, then that's one you need to go after. But I mean, those two
yeah.
pounders, they're big no matter what.
Oh man,
I
well
mean,
y'all
they
saw the
sticking
video.
out.
I thought it was a catfish. I was like, wait a minute, is that a catfish? It was huge, and I was talking to my buddy Tucker before the show, and we talk to people, and we try to get a feel of what they're seeing, and some of these people, they still got to search, they still got to learn what a good fish looks like. A
Right.
lot of them are throwing at balls of bait or throwing at a tiny piece of bait.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get out there and you got to go start finding and looking, or give us a call, or call any of the guides around here will help you get better at what you're doing. There's
Right.
a lot of great guides. Give them a call. They'll put you on some bigger fish and really hone your skills, and that's where you get better. I thought I
Yeah.
just saw Josh Ferrier. I think he caught a 281. Was that right?
Yeah. It was something like
It was a
that.
huge
Josh let us
fish,
know.
and he booked a guy trip with me back in November, I want to say last year, and he's been working on his stuff, and then boom, he's catching some bigger fish now. I think he's
Right.
learned what to be looking at. So kudos to you, Josh. Great fish, and keep digging for that 3 pounder. Everybody's looking for that 3 pounder, and you know what? That's what it takes. To
Yeah.
keep digging, and keep looking. So
Yeah. Yeah. Peter said local knowledge. I mean, Peter beat us at Baden with no live scope, I think,
yeah,
last year. So, I mean, hey,
yep.
kudos to him for sure.
And I love that. I love the
Yeah.
challenge. Back at, I forgot which tournament it was. Was it the church tournament last year? Everybody went to pots. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
went to pots, and I knew it was a little tight getting in there, but you know what? I was like, I would try to beat them without going to pots. I just gave myself a challenge,
Yeah.
and there's no better feeling in the world than being close to try to beat those guys going to pots. But it was fun. It was a great tournament, and if I could have got them other two fish to bite, it would have been a little different outcome. But hey, that's tournament fishing. It's I hear it all the time. If I could have got that one fish to bite, but if you're not out there, you're not getting to see it.
Right.
So it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, going back to what you said just a second ago. Yeah, I mean, just call around, message people on Facebook. I mean, I started kind of since I started this, I've kind of been talking to more people, and yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
my phone number is on the Facebook page. If not, just send me a message. I'll send it to you. But I'm a truck driver. I sit behind the steering wheel 90% of my day. So if y'all want to call me and just talk fishing, I'll talk to you. If I don't answer, I'll just leave me a message. I'll call you back because I mean I get tired of listening to the radio. So, but
I watched a lot of YouTube, Tyler. Even before tournaments, I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch some of these guys. I watch the grids. I watch the little tiny things that makes a
right,
difference. Y'all probably I had several people contact me this week. Chris, why does your Bubba scales look different?
yeah,
That's
there's two
because
different ones.
I took my clip off, and there is two different ones.
Yeah, just a
There's
Bluetooth version, and then they're like the standard
yep,
version.
yep. And but mine, I took the clip off, and
Yep.
I put a little bass fish gripper on there, so I can do everything with one hand.
Yeah.
I just feel like I can put the fish faster on. I can weigh the fish faster and take everything off of one hand.
Yep.
It just makes me faster at culling, and I'm telling y'all, this is what it's going to take one day. We're all going to get good. We're all going to know how to catch 2 pounders, but who can out cull somebody? Who can outfish somebody? Who can catch more fish and cull more fish? It's coming to that day. Y'all saw some of the weights here in these past recent tournaments. They starting to get tighter at the top,
Yep.
and that's going to continue to happen.
Yep.
It's everybody's getting better, but now we gotta. You'll see me be doing a bunch of weird things because I'm testing and trying to find something that's going to make me faster than somebody else.
Right. That's
So,
what I remember you saying at Tillery that Coleman was just a net man all day because he
mhm.
bringing him in so fast. I mean, that's the same thing, exact thing Hayden and Dan Jeffries do.
Yep,
Hayden fishes and he's the net man. And
yep,
literally, I don't know. I think I haven't watched the stuff recently, but I think as soon as he picks up the fish, Hayden just hands him the rod, and then Dan hands him another rod. So it's
yep,
literally his eyes never basically leave the screen, and he's
yep.
always searching, no matter what. It's if that's I think that's eventually what it's going to come to. If you're fishing as a team, there's going to be a net man and a guy catching,
Hmm.
especially if
I
you get in an area with tightly dense fish where you got to
Yeah,
keep your eyes on that screen.
yeah. And I didn't have a chance to practice for that tournament, but I had some ideas of where in the past I fished tournaments with Kevin, and we were successful in some of the
Right,
places I practiced. And I just pulled up at one, and there happened to be about 7 boats there, and I was like, "Well, there's either fish here or not. I think there's fish here." And I looked at Coleman. I said, "Dude, just get ready." And Coleman said that he thinks I had about an extra 30 minutes to 40 minutes of fishing time that day. Because as
right,
soon as I catch one, I'm turning around giving him the fish, and I'm already back on the screen looking, scanning,
right. Yep,
just starting to do my thing while he's culling, while he's getting my bait back together, while he's putting my bobber stoppers back right, and I'm back
hmm
at it fishing as soon as I
yep.
can. So,
Yeah, Rodney, your question about the 7 fish after the spawn, that's going to all vary on your lake. I know if like Falls Lake where y'all fish for the Big Eye tournaments, Falls Lake, I think a good winning weight into March, April time frame is like 8 pounds. From what I've seen, I think last year, maybe the year prior, 8 pounds is a good bag after the spawn up there. And then High Rock, I'm not sure about High Rock. I haven't really fished up there after the spawn, but I'm sure it's not 14.
nah, I mean, you could probably get 10 pounds. I bet you could
Yeah.
get about 10 pounds. So,
But that's all lake dependent. Coleman's giving you a shout out here.
thank you, Coleman. I tell you, uh, don't be afraid to come out here in the summertime and flip these piers, or I flip them. Everybody else shoots them, but I like to flip them because I used to bass fish and I would flip a shaky head under them piers. So I flip a little 16-ounce jig or 1/16. And but Kevin, he's a great dock shooter. But if you practice dock shooting, you can get as good as Randy Pope and Kevin. I mean, them boys can. I mean, in the tiniest little cracks,
Yep.
they can get that and get it under there and catch those fish. And the fish won't be real deep because this is a shallow
Right.
lake, and they'll be under those piers, and you can just sit there and pick them off first thing in the morning, get you about 10 or 12 in the live well, and that's a great dinner for that night. So,
Yep. Yeah. Vernon said, I think the Big Eye Trail. it's $25 entry. And I mean, if you're going to spend that and breakfast, going to the lake, so it's not like you're losing out on much. I think Big Eye Trail, if you're trying to look into getting started in the tournaments, that's the way to go. If you're over in this area, Raleigh Triad area, good group of dudes, stiff competition. You better bring your A game. But if you're just trying to learn, there's plenty. I think he's had 30 boats the last 2 tournaments. So you got about 50 to 60 people to talk to there. And there's a lot of knowledge standing around.
Oh, yeah. And don't be afraid to ask, after the tournament, hey, how'd you catch them? And I even think Rod, he even asked us, Kevin and I, after a tournament one time, how'd you catch them? What'd you do? And we sit there and spilled our beans, and it really helped people, So and that's one thing I'm going to try to talk to News and Ron and Matt McCracken on is, hey, after the tournament, whoever won or whoever the top 3 teams are, give us a little help. There's some guys that didn't weigh in. What can we do to help those guys? Let's keep them. Let's get them off the bottom and make it all tight up top. So hopefully this next tournament we can help each other out and give some tips and techniques and some ideas on how to help these guys. So we want everybody to be there. We want more people to be there. So try to help out or try to come out if you can. It'd be awesome. So
this just popped in my mind. As far as taking something away from a tournament, even though you did absolutely, possibly your worst tournament of the year, when I was coming into the weigh-in at Tillery, I asked Scott, because Scott and Chuck are getting a pretty consistent team as well, and they like to cast a lot. And I asked Scott if he had them. He said, man, we didn't catch. I think they said they had 2 follow and didn't catch any, but it was muddy water too. But those guys, I mean, they're casting. And the first thing he said to me is, I got to get better at this long pole.
Yeah,
you had to. It was so. I mean, there's 1 or 2 inches of visibility. You had to stick it right on their nose. Yep. And Scott, not picking on him, obviously. I'm just using this as an example. Scott's a hell of a fisherman, and but he didn't weigh in a single fish, but he got something out of it. And they're coming next year. If he works on that long pole this year, he's gonna put it on him no matter what the conditions are.
It's funny you talking about that. I hadn't got my dead stick. I hadn't got my Huckabee rod out in a long time, the 16-footer, until about 3 weeks before that tournament. I was talking to Kevin and I was talking to somebody else. We went to a lake. Only way we could catch them was dead stick. And I'm like, I'm kind of glad I'm doing this. This is pretty fun. Right. It's making me better. And I got a couple weeks in right before that Tillery tournament that helped me sharpen my skills before that tournament. Right. So, get it out and try it, see how it'll do, see how it performs. Hopefully you learn something tonight that'll get your butt in gear and get a little fire under you and go give it a whirl. So it's fun.
Yeah, I know the Yak and Chain's kind of wrapping up their trail. They've got a tournament at Baden this weekend. If y'all are interested, $100 at Baden. That's usually the Alcoa ramp.
I believe so. Yeah, we can post it here shortly.
Yeah, I can actually look it up right now. But if y'all are interested over that way, actually, while I'm talking about that, y'all stay put just 1 second, and I'll show you. Let's see. I've got a pressure washing page, a fishing page, my personal page. It's a lot. Let me see. I showed Chris this before we got on. Y'all check this fish out. John Poole's daughter caught this evening.
Oh, it looks huge, y'all. Yeah. It looks like it's over 3. I was saying 290. I don't know if he's on here. If he could maybe give us an estimate what he thought it was, but I know he said, what'd you say, 18 inches long?
Almost 19 inches, he said.
Almost 19. I caught an 18 and a half, and it was 3 pounds.
Yeah. If y'all could see that fish, I mean, that's a freaking stud right there. And but I mean, they're out there. You just got to find them, be in the right spot at the right time.
And you see that right there? He's got his kid with him.
Yeah.
He's got his kid with him. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, the crappie queen is what they call her. She caught that one today. He said, she can fish with just about the best of us. There's Scott right there. You learn something new every tournament. That's right.
That's right.
But God, I forgot. Well, I was about to look up something. Oh yeah, the Yak and Trail.
I will tell y'all a little thing. I know a lot of people want to ask about, my practice. There's a couple things I do when I'm practicing. I'm more looking than I am catching.
Yep.
I'm more looking than I am catching. I'm not trying to get a 14-pound bag or a 13-pound bag 2 days before the tournament. Um, I'm really doing a lot of looking, and I'm doing a lot of waypoints, 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 waypoints. So I know when I come back, I'm close to that spot. I want to make sure that's where I'm at, because sometimes if you're looking down all the time and then you look up, you're in the wrong spot.
You're
Right.
next to the bank.
Especially if you're dead sticking, you're down, you're 100 yards from where you started, and all the
Yeah.
fish were back there, and you forgot to waypoint it. So
Hmm.
yeah, I do like to pop a waypoint, and especially if I see some good ones, and then I'll just leave. I'll leave, go to another spot. Go. I'll probably spend 10, 15 minutes a spot. Not even that sometimes. I mean, I may, well, you saw me. I'll
Yep.
bounce down, look, bounce right back up and leave.
Yep.
The live scope does not lie. It's right there. So now you got something that's looking underwater. They're there or not. Just like going to a
Yep.
pier. They're either under that pier or not. So just
Yep.
don't be afraid to bounce around, bounce around, bounce around. That's one thing that really helps me. I think I won't stay in a spot too long.
Yeah, I actually saw a guy on social media today. He said that he thinks how some people have two graphs at a console, two up front. He thinks a
Hmm.
lot of people are just going to start running one up front and one at the console, to cut down on the expenses and costs and
Yeah,
stuff like that. Because I mean, the live scope is going to show you more than what you're. Because when those fish, like I don't know if they still are right now. I haven't fished in the last 2 weeks, but when they're 1 to 2 foot under the surface, you're not going to see that on side imaging
hmm,
most likely, anyways. I mean,
yeah,
you're sticking it on the fish with the live scope, and you see your weight above the water. I mean, that's how
yeah.
shallow they are.
I know,
Yeah, and
I
he was
know.
just saying how he thinks it's going to eventually become just one up front, one at the console, and because I do the same thing a lot of times, depending on the area I'm in, I don't even side scan. I just if I think they're there, I just pull up,
Hmm.
drop the live scope,
Yeah,
look around 10, 15 minutes. If there's nothing there, move on.
takes two seconds to drop that scope and look, and it's either going to be there or not. And it's crazy how technology's changed. I can't imagine what the next live scope system is going to look like.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be amazing. But I know my hummingbird up front. I have a hummingbird, a Helix 10, that's connected. That's to my 12 at the console. I haven't took the cover off of it in 2 years. I hadn't even
Right.
cut it on in 2 years. So I don't even know if I need it up there or not. It's just extra weight.
Yeah, I do use. I don't really use mine this time of year, but when it comes to brush piles, I definitely use it just for waypoints. And if you got three brush piles close together, you can
Hmm.
just pull up to the first one.
Yeah,
Come into the wind, fish
yeah.
this one, then fish this one. You know exactly where it is. But I don't rarely use mine either. Let's see, Coleman Monday. We talk about this real quick. Are you doing the Mill Rock tournament this year? I can't remember if you
I
said you
am.
were or
I
not.
had to work last year, and I never got a chance to schedule it back up. I was working out of town that weekend, so I didn't get to do it. But yes, the Mill Rock Crappie Bash will be a go the first Saturday in August this year.
I got
So
you.
mark your calendars. We're gonna rock and roll. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and that's more geared toward the kids. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
tournament in general, but it's a big
It's
thing for the
several
kids to
tournaments
come.
in that one. You got your kids. I may do a girls against guys, or something like that. Who knows? I'd love to
Yeah,
see some more girls out there fishing and just having a blast. We need to get these kids active and get them off these video games, get them out there fishing. So
yeah. When we got distracted with John's daughter's fish a minute ago, but you were saying you pulled out the long pole like a week before Tillery, and just to get the feel for it. And
hmm,
it's the same thing when it comes to boat control too, because I know like
hmm,
I don't fish a whole lot during the summer, especially this year if I'm going to be pressure washing and stuff a lot, and it takes me a month to get my boat control back.
hmm,
And when it comes to that, it's just about keeping those skills sharp and not being so rusty. Because for me, if I go, just say I'm consistently fishing every weekend and I take a month off, it seems like it takes me a month and a half just to get those fine, without having to think about it, that fine adjustments back to
hmm.
where it's just second nature.
Yep. I even had a tough time after dead sticking there for a little bit after the Tillery tournament. I went back to flipping, and I was like, man, am I off? And it's just I hadn't done it in a while,
Yeah.
and it just took me a while to hone back in. And last Sunday, it was I was throwing some bombs out there. They were biting last Sunday, so hopefully they're biting this Saturday. It'd be a good tournament.
Yeah, I don't know if me and you talked about this either, but I've read your boat for a few minutes, and that's the first time I ever ran a fiberglass boat live
Hmm.
scoping. And I'll
Hmm.
tell y'all, if y'all were in the market looking for a crappy tournament rig, I I like aluminum because I'm kind of, if I'm pulling up to the dock, I just let it bump. Like, I was just the way I grew up. We grew up at the coast, and it's just kind of my mindset. But that fiberglass handles 10 times better than an
Yeah,
aluminum boat does.
yeah,
Something to
it's. I saw some boats last year at the Crappie Expo up in at Alabama, and I saw some bass boats with some posts already built in the front. I think it's coming. I think you're going to start seeing more fiberglass boats designed for the crappie fishing tournament world.
yeah,
It's around the corner. You're going to start seeing it. It's coming. So,
yeah. Yeah, we'll start wrapping it up here in a little bit. Don't want to keep
guys,
y'all too late.
it's 8 o'clock already.
Yeah, it
Holy
won't take
cow!
long.
Holy
Yeah,
cow!
if y'all got any questions, go ahead and send them in. But yeah, Steve, I didn't see that today. I didn't watch the bass stuff, but a VR, especially, was that a headset that the guy was wearing, Steve, or what? Because I mean,
I missed that.
that's first I've heard of that.
I saw Ben. He's up and coming, and he's in a bass cat. I saw him catching some good ones. I think he had 22 pounds today. So
Yeah, I
and
hadn't
also
seen the results.
Brandon Card, he had tail hooks on his boat at Toledo Bend this week. So it's going to help in that wind. It's going to help in
Yeah,
that
he
wind.
said it was a headset, so there's something
Uh
coming
oh.
out.
Uh oh. Wow.
Let's see. We'll throw this question at you, Chris. What you think of win that baby Saturday?
These let's say 1375.
It's what you told. I think we
1375.
talked earlier in the week. You said it's going to be the one team. Everybody. I mean, I've been seeing all week. Last 2 weeks, there's been 13-pound bags coming out of bait. But you said it's
Mm-hmm.
going to take that one big kicker fish to put that team over the edge, probably.
Yeah, I didn't see that kicker fish the last time I practiced, but I think if you put together a nice 13-pound bag and you get a kicker fish, you definitely got to win.
Yeah.
If
Yep.
Josh is out there catching 281s, he's going to be a tough dude to handle. If you catch that fish on tournament day with 13 pounds, you got it in the bag, baby.
Yeah. I'm not going to make it this weekend. I'm actually doing my second pressure washing job of the year this
Nice.
weekend, and the wife's going to a
Warming up.
concert Friday evening, so I didn't want to put the kid off on her first thing Saturday morning. I give her a little break because she's been watching it pretty much all winter while I've been fishing. So
I got a feeling my fishing days are going to slow down here in about 9 months. I don't know if y'all heard, but I'm going to be a grandpa. Chase is having a baby in September. So
is that the first one?
First one. And you know it's going to be spoiled. Cassie's already buying. She's already went to Costco today buying baby stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to be crazy. I'll still try to find some time. As soon as it's big enough, it's going to be in the boat fishing with me. I can promise you that.
Yeah, that's what I've been. I got my little boy I think it's like a little Paw Patrol rod, and he went. I had to pry it out of his hands one night just to go to sleep in bed, and he the first night he picked it up, he pushed the button and let it drop. Well, the other night he was like this. I said, "Just push the button." And it ain't gonna take him long. He's gonna be throwing that little thing all the way across, busting out windows. Hopefully not. But yeah, I'm hoping But my dad, he's gonna be the same way. He's probably gonna be up my dad's butt every weekend because he's gonna spoil the heck out of him because that's his only grand youngin, and he's already the bad influences on each other.
Let him play with that 16-foot Huckabee rod out there in the yard.
Yeah.
Let him see if he can pop it down on a couple leaves or a couple golf balls or something.
Oh yeah. I always have to. I've got 2 rods for him out in the barn. I say, look, these are your rods. They're like $10 Walmart rods or something. I say, I keep hitting mine up away from him because I don't need him breaking a tip or nothing like that.
Yeah, like Ken said, let him hold that 16 so you can get that new 17 carnivore. You buy all you want.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. That 17, I felt Kevin Stacy had it, and it felt good to me.
Yeah, I felt Kevin Blevins, and it's balanced right. I still hadn't broke down and got one. I got to go get one, give it a whirl.
Yeah. For everybody, next week I just shot a pre-recorded interview with Ed Duke, so that's what y'all have to enjoy. Hopefully next week. I went up to his place and we sat down, had a pretty good conversation. It'll be a little over an hour long, and there's some editing mistakes in it, but just to let y'all know if y'all watch that ahead of time, basically when I went to export the video, the whole system kind of froze, and I was freaking out all day Sunday. So I was scared to try to do any more editing to it in case, like even when I go back in my camera roll right now, 2 of the videos are frozen for some reason. I've never seen that happen. So next week ain't gonna be fine tuned. It's gonna be real life stuff. Like it's just it ain't no high class production, but it's a good conversation. We go into some history of the tournament scene and stuff like that. There's about 6 to 8 minutes that got cut out just because my camera turned off and I didn't realize it. But we went back and covered some of the stuff. But there's probably 6 to 8 minutes we missed out on. But he gives a different insight to what's going on in today's world and things like that. And it'll be a good interview. Y'all should enjoy that.
He's got some great YouTubes too. I've watched a lot of his YouTubes, and they're great informational stuff about crappie fishing. So check him out. Good stuff.
Check him out at southerncrappie.com. And just to give y'all a little heads up, he kind of, we talk about this during the interview, but he kind of started out casting and trolling poles. Obviously, that's the thing back then, way before live scope. But he's got a blue series of line or rods out now. And right now, I believe it's a 10, a 12, a 14. And he's got the prototype should be in April. His prototype should be in April, so be on the lookout for those in roughly a year or so, depending on how the research with the rods and all that stuff comes out. But he'll be coming out with a 7-foot casting and also a 17.5-foot live scope pole. And that 17.5 foot is going to be from end to end. So you're going to have 16 foot from the reel seat where you're holding it to the end of the pole. So you're going to actually have a full 16 foot out in front of you. So if y'all are in the market for some rods here in the next year or so, check out Southern Crappie. But yeah, he's got a wealth of knowledge. We stood around talking 2.5 hours after the interview, and he's got a lot of stories for sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping in this podcast series that we get to talk to some of the old timers and get to bring them on and get to hear about some of these old tournament trails that have a lot of history. And how did they have 150 boats in their trails? And maybe they can give us some insight on how to help grow the new trails these days. So it'd be neat to hear some of the wisdom they bring to the table.
Right. Ken over on YouTube, spinning reel or casting reel on the long poles. I think everyone I know uses casting reel, and Chris does the same. It's a lot easier. It's all personal preference. There's 100 different ways you can do it. Set up line, reel, rod, stuff like that. But I prefer a left-handed casting rod or reel.
A real light casting reel. A bait caster, real light. Doesn't have to be anything special. As long as it's light, it makes that rod light, and you just need something to hold some line. You're pretty much, you're the drag. So just something just light, keep it light.
DLX gift commenting. Yeah, he's got his daughter out there every trip. That's what it's all about, passing on to the next generation.
Yep.
If y'all see me looking off the screen, I've probably been doing it this whole time. I'm just reading the comments off to the side.
Yeah, I'm
Philip
trying to keep up with it too.
Nothing like them grandkids. Let's see. Buckeye Crappie. Let's see what he's got. We'll start wrapping it up. Can't wait for my great grandson to come of age, quit hunting and fishing when they got girlfriends.
Yes, I remember them days.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I do appreciate you jumping on here tonight, and y'all stay tuned for the video next week with Ed Duke, and let him speak his mind. And everybody have a good night, and I appreciate all the people watching. We had, I think 35 is the biggest number I've seen view-wise all at once, which is pretty good. I mean, this is only the second live, so I consider that a success. We'll just keep on growing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate the time, Tyler, and appreciate you doing this, bud.
Yeah, let's see. We got one more question coming in. Steve said, are the rods made for casting, or do you fish them upside down? If you're referring to the Southern Crappie rods, they'll be cast or the 7-footer will be like a spinning pole, and the 17.5-footer will be just a long pole. That's completely up to you if you want to use it upside down with a spinning reel, or if you want to use a bait caster.
Yeah, I think the Huckabee 16 and even the new Carnivore, it's got a spinning butt seat on it, but you can use it as a casting too. And I think 95% of people use it as a casting because it just all you need something just hold line. So
yeah, there is some of you tips right there getting you put to work already. Talking about the Bubba scale. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching. And this is I think the 3rd episode of Carolina Catch and Cast. And Chris, stay on right here, and I'll end it real quick. And y'all have a good night. See you.
See y'all. Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Oh, what?
We gotta end the show with a piece of life advice for the people. I think we did it in another video, but we gotta give something else.
But, go ahead. What you got? And now throw mine.
Let's see. I've never been on the life advice side. Let's see.
I got something.
Go ahead. Give me a second.
All right. Life advice: never go to bed mad at your wife. Find out a way to make her happy. Do whatever. If you got to clean or mow the yard at 12 o'clock at night, do whatever you got to do to make sure you don't go to bed mad at each other. I think that'll help you guys stay married for a long time. That's what my father-in-law taught me is never go angry at each other, and it'll help you. It'll help the healthy relationship down the road with your wife, or with your spouse.
Yeah, my wife said you put me on the spot with that one. I wasn't expecting that. But no, I definitely agree with that. Kind of like I said earlier. I mean, my wife's been watching the kid every weekend while I fish, so that's why I figured I'd just take the weekend off and kind of help her out. We're gonna go do some pressure washing for her grandpa this weekend, and let's see. I'm gonna put some life advice. Do what you can, to help others in need. Just say, for instance, you're on the water and you see somebody's waving you down. Stop what you're doing and go help them. Because I've towed in several boats before. They try to hand me $40, $50 on the boat. I'm not, man. He said he was leaving the boat in the water. He's going to buy him a battery. I said, put that money toward your battery, because it's going to be me out here one day needing to tow back in.
Good for you. That's awesome.
I just help somebody on the water, and something I also try to do, especially when the water comes out. If you see a lot of plastic floating, trash, just stick your dip net down in there. You don't bend over the boat this time of year. Water's too cold for all that, but I try to keep a net in my boat just for something like that. You don't even have to come off an idle if you're scanning. You just row by it, pick it up with your net, put it in the floor of the boat.
Yep.
That'll help the ecosystem, later on years down the road. But that's something I try to do. And let's see, Justice says she can't be mad at you if you kick her out having an attitude. But thanks for tuning in tonight, y'all. It's Carolina Catch and Cast. We'll see you later.
Thank you.